Good afternoon, everybody, or morning, or later afternoon, depending on where you're at. So I have something very special for you today. I'm wearing my pirate hat because this story that I'm going to be reading does have pirates in it, and it is the start of when things really start to take a turn in my Shadows of Eleanor series. This book is actually in beta right now, so what I have for you is chapter 1 of what I've sent to the beta readers. So there is a really high chance that a lot of what I'm reading is going to be changed, although not major parts of it. This is the main part of the story, and from what I've gotten back so far from my beta readers, they've really enjoyed this first chapter, so I don't think I have to make too many changes to it, so that's a good thing. It saves a little bit of time on editing, but I will go back here to this chapter 1 of the Salty Eleanor. And before I get started, I wanted to let you know that at the after I finish reading this, I'll be talking about a way for you that you can actually help get this published, because there is one last expense that I have to get through before I can get this published, and I'm hoping to see about some ways that I could get that done. We've had some recent events happen that have made money a little bit tighter for us, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to get an early pre-order of it. Also get my other books as well for a special offer and things like that. As you can see too, I'm wearing my Sleepy Cephalopod Coffee Company shirt, which actually has a hidden meaning behind it too, because this story, I have one of my favorite artists that's doing the cover for this. I've had the pleasure of, she actually did the cover for, if you recognize this picture at all, this is for the Paint Me a Picture of Poison, which is a short story that I did, and I like, you know, she got me this canvas and everything, and I was able to use the image for the digital copies of that book. But again, it was just digital copies, and I wanted to get an actual physical copy of her work out to you. So she's actually doing the cover art for the Salty Eleanor. Her name's Arden Ellen Nixon. She does amazing work. We know her at cons. We miss her because we were supposed to see her at a convention coming up that got postponed. So actually this book is hopefully going to be out at the time that convention was postponed to in July and August. So my goal is to get this out in June, depending on other circumstances. So anyway, that's enough of that. I will get into the reading here. Let's see. Oh, before I do, I need to grab one quick thing too. Just forgot to grab that. Okay, so I have, this is chapter 1 of the Salty Eleanor beta read. This is the Shadows of Eleanor series, book 3 by me, Matthew E Nordin. Chapter 1. Did you lace this brew with troll's blood? Cindric coughed as he slid the mug across the table. The frothy liquid sloshed in front of his friend Dan. It's supposed to make you forget one night, not tomorrow's as well. His future wife would have strong words with you if he did. Dan eyed the brood carefully as Cindric motioned for him to drink. Although they were the same height, Cindric's muscles gave him extra weight as he swung a hammer at his forge, every chance he could get away. It's not that strong, Jack chimed in behind them and slapped Cindric on the back. He was the shortest of the apprentices, but the biggest boaster. You need to toughen your gut. He grabbed the cup, slammed it on the table, and threw back a swig into his gullet. Oh, sweet heavens, fire! You might be right. His face turned red as he placed both hands on the table. It's got meat to it, Cindric said to Dan, who picked the mug up, holding it halfway to his lips. Go on and pay your dues. If Jack would ever divulge the secrets of his master's brew, we could likely improve it. If you show me how to make those stone mugs, I may take you up on that, Jack said, a little hoarse, and pointed to the vessel in Dan's shaking hand. It's as light as a wooden one, but nearly unbreakable. I hardly left the swallow for you, Dan. Go on and take a step closer to your maker. Dan sipped the brew with a twitching eye. I'm glad you added a touch of honey. Makes the bitters a little more bearable. Given the drinks he creates, you'd imagine he'd have all the women swooning over him, Cindric said, and nudged Jack, who overreacted to the shove. I'm surprised you and Kate haven't been married yet with how long you've been exclusive with her. It keeps things simple, Jack stood up. Besides, I don't see anyone flocking to your ugly mug. Cindric held a fist to smack him, but decided to back down. Everyone has their reasons. I'll settle down when I find the right one. I'm happy to be settled down, Dan said. Rena is perfect for me. I want to raise a family and teach my kids how to weave and spin yarn for me. It took me all week to get your garments ready for the wedding. You'd be a right taskmaster, Jack laughed. I'm surprised you didn't have us do all the work for you for your last night as a free man. Traditionally, you're supposed to be taking things lightly. That's not a bother. You stick to improving these drinks. Dan finished the last of the brew and set the mug back on the table. Okay, the more I drink it, the more it tastes like a fairy puked into it. But better than what Cindric said. Troll's blood? Everyone laughed as Jack ran back to grab another round of drinks. Cindric hoped it would be something less experimental as he gathered his long black hair behind him. Speaking of trolls, he said while braiding it back, has anyone seen Crowell yet? He should have been ready with our nightly voyage. And he's probably mapping out a way to find the troll island and have us raise the place. Dan shook his head. He's obsessed with those creatures. Cindric had to scoot back from the table as Jack stumbled to get their drinks on the table. His stone mugs had been one of the most popular items in the tavern. It helped him create a small stream of income, hopefully for his own forge once his apprenticeship was completed. His two friends were also under a master who taught them in their trade. Dan would soon be venturing out with his own, being the first to be married in the morning. I heard Crowell outran the great king of trolls, Asik Yalm, on his ship. Jack swirled his drink around before chugging it down. The blighter probably didn't see him and was traveling in the opposite direction. I did outrun the troll king, a voice boomed behind them. Asik Yalm was lucky I hadn't been armed. The man walking up to the table towered over the other three. His sleeveless shirt was tight to enhance the size of his biceps, larger than the size of Cindric's leg. There was a reason the other apprentices called him captain, although he was their equal. No one liked to question his decisions. Also, you shouldn't drink anything Jack has concocted tonight, Crowell continued and placed his behemoth hands on the table. I've smuggled some of the strongest ales you'll ever taste. Made a good deal with the mage near Caithiel. You do know Caithiel is a ghost town, right? Jack said and raised an eyebrow. It is to those who don't know where to look. The chair creaked from under him as he sat on the other side. He lifted one of the drinks and sniffed it. Is this your latest work? You should dive for the bottom of that stuff, Jack said. It will put hair on your hairs. A crack of thunder shook the room before Crowell could respond. So much for going out on a voyage tonight. Cindric looked out the window and sighed. I'm sure we could find somewhere else to go celebrate. The forge is always heated. Nonsense, Crowell stood up boldly and jammed his thumb into his chest. They don't call me the Storm Eye for nothing. It's a good night for hunting ghosts on the seas. We'll get Dan a proper send-off to his life of captivity. He punched Dan's arm so hard he almost fell out of the chair. The drink in front of him didn't fare so well as it spewed its contents across the table and onto his pants. Watch it, Captain, Cindric said, and moved his chair back from the stream of liquid running off the table into his lap. We don't want to ruin Dan's nicely tailored trousers. He probably spent more time working on them than he did planning the wedding. Dan's mug hit Cindric in the shoulder. It spilled more of the rank drink onto his shirt. He stood up as Dan burst into a fit of laughter. Now you do look like a fairy puked on you, he said between breaths. Another clap of thunder and flash of lightning filled the room. The pattering of rain on the roof added to the noise of everyone hitting mugs on the table. I guess I'm already soaked for the voyage, Cindric said. Might as well get rinsed off in the rain. Lead the way, Captain. Crowell nodded and gulped down the last remaining mug on the table. The others followed him out into the night. Cindric was likely the most sober of the group and hoped to remain that way. None of his friends would be able to remember, so he could depict the story however he wanted. Yet no drink could cause Cindric to forget the merriment of the night. It would be the last time all four of them remained in such good spirits with one another. The roar... Oh, let me try again. I think I need something stronger than water. I need a coffee. Okay. The roar of the waves beating against the ship added to the intensity of the adrenaline coursing through Cindric. He'd been on many trips with Crowell, and the captain told stories of sailing through some tremulous times. But the sailor was known for his embellishments to brag. This was the worst Cindric had experienced with the brave captain, who pushed the ship out into the sea as if it were a calm, sunny day. The strength of Jack's drink he guzzled likely helped with his boldness to depart. "You sure this boat can handle the waves?" Dan called out from his binds. As was tradition, he had been tied to the mast before the four set out into the sea. "I'd like to have a wedding night tomorrow." Crowell smiled and turned sharply to cut through a wave about to curl over them. "Don't worry," Cindric said, setting himself on an overhanging rope. "He knows what he's doing. The seas would be mad to try to stop him." He hoped and gripped tighter to the swinging rope. "You should be thankful you're secure. Jack looks like he's about to fly out." Cindric pointed to their smaller friend, who was clutching on to the side rail. His face was a tint of green, and he struggled to keep his balance. Every so often, he would stick his head over the boat from the rocking of the waves. "He can't handle his own drink," Dan laughed. "Bring me another swig of the stuff Crowell found. He definitely found something good. I need to remember to get some for the ceremony." "Too much of it and you'll likely marry everyone you meet." Cindric grabbed the bottle and tipped it to Dan's lips. Dan strained to get a drink while being bound and tossed from the storm. Most of the liquid spilled across his chin. "Easy with that bottle," Crowell shouted from behind the wheel. It's not like the cheap stuff Dan makes. It's not like the cheap stuff Jack makes. It's for Dan anyway," Cindric said and took a deep drink of it. The smooth taste of caramel and pineapple danced on his tongue. The liquid slid easily down his throat. "This is a dangerous drink. I could probably down a whole keg of this before getting sick." "I told you I found the best," Crowell said, and held his hands to shield his eyes from the salty spray of the waves. The storm gave them a break from the torrential rain. "We're almost out of it." "Jack would be happy to hear that." Cindric offered more of the brew to Dan, who pursed his lips to get at every drop. "It seems like these storms blow through fast this time of year. I'm glad it's a warm rain." Dan coughed. "How long am I supposed to stay tied up anyway? It's not for the whole time, is it?" "You'll soon be tied up for good," Crowell said, and kicked one of the levers on his boat. "We'll set you free in a moment. Once we get through this clearing, I want to show you all something I discovered on my last trip." Crowell turned the ship again into the complete darkness of the storm's fury. The last wall of rain fell on them, and they passed through a low-hanging cloud. Although the waves remained high from the storm passing over it, it was a relief to be out of the wind. "Hey Jack, the storm's gone," Crowell called. "Get over here and join us. You can undo the knots around Dan while you're at it. Cindric doesn't know how to untie a vest." Cindric waved him off and looked out across the sea. The clear break in the sky showed him an endless amount of stars filling every inch of space. Each one shone brighter than the next, creating a dazzling map of the night. It gave him an overwhelming sense of loneliness. Dan would be married by tomorrow, and Crowell was always off seeking new adventures in different ports. Jack had a girl he'd been courting for a while, and it wouldn't be long before they would be married too. Cindric wanted to say he had a promising relationship, but none of the girls he liked in Verfell stayed long. The winter scared off most families. "Gentlemen, please entertain my words," Crowell said, and stepped down as Jack freed the ropes from Dan. "I know most of you view sailing as a poor man's craft, and I could never have as much prestige or wealth as your pursuits. I can't craft a drink to alter your thoughts or fashion an indestructible mug. Even Dan has me beat with his ability to spin yarn into something useful." "It's impressed one lady the most," Dan laughed. "That's all I care about." "I don't know if I could settle on one," Crowell continued, and grabbed a bottle from Cindric. He lifted it to his lips, looking off in the distance before taking a swig. "But one thing I've been curious about is the knowledge of forgotten times. The places I've recently visited have taught me some things you cannot fathom. Not to mention all the diseases you likely picked up," Jack said with a grin. His color had returned with his wit. "Come on, great captain. What sort of devilish tricks have you been learning?" "Cindric likely knows more than me about what can be hidden beyond our vision." Crowell rubbed his hands together. "He's told me how an ordinary stone or gem can hide hidden properties. Am I right?" "Yes," Cindric nodded, eager to see what Crowell learned. "Almost every material has a special quality waiting to be unlocked. My father was the best of us blacksmiths to understand their abilities. One of the few. What did you discover?" I learned of the magic of the seas, Crowell smiled. This will be something you won't see again, so I hope you enjoy it, Dan. He began to mutter in an unknown language. His tone dropped to a lower pitch as he urged an entity from the deep to be revealed. He placed his hands upon the deck and shouted in a strange tongue. The water around them churned, more so than the storm. It rippled to odd shapes like rain fell on the opposite side. Best find your spots on the rail, Dan nudged Jack. Looks like Captain Stormeye is bringing something down upon us. Not down, Cindric peered over the edge and wiped the water from his eyes. Something is coming up. The patterns of the waves increased their vibrations. They pulsed away from the ship. Cindric leaned closer to the water. They weren't waves. They were wings. What in the... He gasped as the waves exploded into a fury of small birds, flying upside down. The birds spun around the ship, transparent like the water dripping off them. They continued to create a pillar floating higher and around the ship. This is incredible! Dan was wide-eyed and held out a hand to touch them. Stop! Crowley yelled and grabbed Dan's arm. He was too late. Dan touched one of the birds and quickly fell back. His fingers started to smoke and blister. He screamed in pain while they watched the skin and bone curl back. No blood spilled out from the severed finger as it fell off and cauterized itself. Call it off! Cindric grabbed Crowell's shoulder and spun him around. Whatever this is, end it! Crowell looked too terrified to respond. Cindric had never seen him scared of anything before. The captain's mouth hung open. Why didn't you say anything? Dan asked through gritted teeth. You could have warned us about them before summoning them. I didn't know. Crowell stared up at the increasing multitude of creatures swarming around the ship. I don't know how to stop them. They never stayed up this long when I learned the spell. Everyone moved closer to the center of the ship. The birds continued to circle in their upside-down formation. Their shrieks continued to echo in chaotic waves as they vanished into the cloud above the crew. We need to get back to town and find a healer. Cindric put a hand on Dan's back. Are you okay? I think so, Dan said. I've never felt so much pain at once. It kept getting worse until the birds were done circling and left. But my finger's gone too. At least it wasn't the one for your wedding ring, Jack quipped from behind. I bet Rena would want to have the captain's head if it was. And it's not quite the memory you wanted for tonight. Although it's not quite the memory you wanted for tonight, you won't forget it. I'm not sure if you'll want to be at the ceremony, Cindric said to Crowell. It looks like Dan is okay, but his future wife might be a different story. Crowell stared into the sky where the creatures disappeared and shook his head in acknowledgement. Give me more rum, Dan said through clenched teeth. I suppose the night can't get any worse. They continued to drink more in an attempt to forget the events they witnessed, but there was not a strong enough brew. A wicked presence seemed to follow them to Verfell. Crowell remained silent the rest of the trip as he steered the ship back to port, brooding over whatever he had conjured. And that is Chapter 1 of the beta of the Salty Eleanor, which is Book 3 in the Shadows of Eleanor series. And like I said, it is the beta reads, or it is the beta version, so I still have to go through and do the final edits once I get the beta reads and everything back. So what I need to do, though, before I get this published is there is a fee for the ISBN number, which is the last thing that I have to get paid for. And with recent events that have happened in our lives, it's become a little bit harder to do that. So what I would like to do is to kind of do a pre-order of this book. And so all my books are online right now for, well, I shouldn't say all my books, but if you get the books from me at a convention or something like that, I can actually sell them for $10, which is less than the price on Amazon. So for pre-orders on this book, if you have $10 and would like to get this pre-ordered now, just send me a message on Facebook or reach out to me if you have my number, anything like that. We can find a way that you can get that $10 to me, and I'll put your name in a list for that those first copies as soon as I get them printed, which will be sometime in June or July, depending on when I get all the edits done. Also, if you do the this pre-order now, I'll put a special thank you in the acknowledgements for you, because This is a great benefit to me. It really helps us get this published. The ISBN numbers, just to be transparent, is about $100 to get that ISBN number. So if I get 10 people to send me $10, that's great. They do have it where if you spend, I think it's like 300 or 400, I have to double check to tell you exactly, but it's around that price. I can actually get 10 ISBN numbers, which would I'd be able to use on future books, which I am currently in the process of writing the Pycroft Continuum, which is the second part of Pycroft Particle, and I have the first draft done of book 4, which is the final book in the Salty Eleanor series. And I'm hoping to, that's actually going to be a lot longer than these other ones that I have written so far. And it's kind of the conclusion of the Shadows of Eleanor series. I'm really excited to get that one done too. I know that won't be till next year and everything, but I'm also hoping to put the series together as a full book, which will be probably hardcover, and doing a few of those, so I'd need an ISBN number for that too. So there's a lot of just those, each time I get a ISBN number is like $100 pop, unless I can get a mass amount of them for that 300 to 400 range. Also, I do have, if you've gotten any of my books at a convention or vending show, you know that I have a special discount if you get 2 or more. If you get 2 books, I do $18. If you get 3 books, I do $25. So if you have $25 and you message me about that, I would actually send you the first 2 that I have right now, so you can actually read Hollows of the Nox, Awakening the Stricken, and have those before I actually get the 3rd one published. I'd send these to you now, and then once I get the 3rd one, I'd get that sent to you as well. So yeah, just send me a message if you're interested in that. We can figure out a way for payment and get your address and things like that, so I can get you those books sent. Yeah, so if you have any questions about that, just let me know. I don't want you guys to comment with your address or payment methods or anything like that, because that's foolish. Don't do that. Send me a direct message. Or hey, if you just say interested, we can message you as well, and we can get something figured out there. So anything you can do though to help get this book published is greatly appreciated, especially at this time. I know everybody's money is kind of tight. We're all trying to save money. You know, basically we have until I can get this published, which is probably going to be sometime in June, once I get all the beta reads back and then do the final edits of those. It takes a while to get that to my editor and to get all those final edits done. I noticed there was, as I was reading, there was a couple repeated words in a sentence. So I was like, oh no, I need to get that fixed. So it's good to read it aloud too. Anyway, before I go though, I just wanted to leave you with a little bit of encouragement and everything like that. I was actually reading through Romans, actually, which is, I kind of always go back to this verse. And this is a verse that's actually kind of special for my wife and I, that a lot of people cling to, especially at this time. A lot of people are going through uncertainty and everything, and this verse has been something that people really cling to. It's Romans 8:28 says that we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. So, you know, everything works for good, and I think a lot of people will just stop there and just they stay on that verse and they don't go any further, just because it's easy just to memorize one verse instead of a whole chapter, which I would recommend if you were to memorize a chapter. Romans 8 is amazing. I've been trying to memorize it. I'm not very good with memorizing things. I'm an improvist. I don't memorize anything. But if you have that ability to go and memorize stuff, definitely memorize Romans 8. It's full of all kinds of goodness and great things. That there's no condemnation, things like that. But anyway, I wanted to just kind of continue Romans 8, basically to the end. It's, you know, God works all things to the good of those that love him, to those who have been called according to his purpose. For those he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, so that he would be the firstborn among many brethren. And those whom he predestined, he also called. And those whom he called, he also justified. and those who he justified, he also glorified. What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who is against us? He who did not spare his own son, but delivered him over for us all, how will he not also with him freely give us all things? For who will bring a charge against God's elect? God is the one who justifies. Who is the one who condemns? Christ Jesus is he who died. Yes, rather, who was raised, who is at the right hand of God, who also intercedes for us. And then this is such a great passage. It says, who will separate us from the love of Christ? Will tribulation or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or the sword? Just as it is written, for your sake we are being put to death all day long. We are considered as sheep to be slaughtered. But in all these things we overwhelmingly conquer through him who loved us. For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing would be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. And that's just such an awesome place where it's like, yeah, you can start with that. God works all things together for his purpose, for the good of those who love him. But then just like going on, that's like, that love can't be taken away. Like there's nothing, anything. It's, we overwhelmingly conquer all things through him who loves us. So I just wanted to leave you with that, that little bit of hope and peace as you're going through this time, and hope you enjoyed the video, and you're doing well. It's Friday, so we're probably going to be doing a game later with you that will be live, so hope you stick around and keep following our page. Thank you. Have a good day.